So I want to thank everyone for being here. I'm Jamie Fuentes, the Senior Director of Coach Experience here at Boone, and I'm really excited to host this month's panel. So I want to make an announcement that for those of you who are in Los Angeles or you've been impacted by the fire, you're in our thoughts. And Boone will be offering a complimentary a complimentary safe space. So if you're interested in participating in that or would like more information, I am going to put my personal email address in the chat. It's jfuentes@boone-health.com. And like I said, I'll put that in the chat because I want to make sure that we're supporting you and getting you the safe space that you may need during this particular time. So I'm thrilled to kick off 2025 with our goal setting discussion today. And I want to acknowledge that it's not easy to take time out of your day, and we applaud you for taking some time for yourself and your professional development. And I want to talk quickly about Boone. That I know many of you on today's call may be familiar with us, but we may have some new faces. So I just want to give the opportunity to introduce us and who we are. So we're a personalized coaching platform that provides one-on-one customized coaching sessions. And our platform has around 200 ICF accredited coaches with a wide range of professional backgrounds. And it ranges from executives with operating experiences to coaches who are certified in mindfulness and meditation. And what is really unique about Boone is we're that intersection of professional development and well-being, because we understand that everyone is a whole being and everything intersects with each other. So if you're interested in working with a coach on relationships, professional development, communication, we absolutely have a coach for that. And if you have any questions about Boone or would like to learn more about us, you can contact us at hello@boonehealth.com. And I will put that email in the chat as well in just a minute. So a few housekeeping items. Please make sure that you keep yourself on mute so we don't hear any background noise throughout today's presentation. And if you have any questions, you could go ahead and put them in the Q&A. So that way I can address those when we get through today's questions. So without further ado, here is our panel. First off, we have Keith Cocking, who's been coaching, leading, and training people in organizations for 28 years. He has coached people in all layers of leadership to help leaders develop themselves beyond their perceived capabilities. One of Keith's gifts is to help leaders get comfortable at getting uncomfortable, where their true growth, development, and personal excellence exists. In addition to coaching, Keith has led teams to success, development, and learning strategies for large organizations and facilitated to thousands of leaders. Next up, we have Wendy Carter, who is a leadership coach with over 20 years experience getting executives and emerging leaders across Fortune 100 companies in healthcare, entertainment, finance, and more. She elevates leadership presence, fosters cohesive teams, and helps professionals thrive without sacrificing well-being. Through empathetic coaching and corporate expertise, Wendy aligns personal values with professional ambitions to create sustainable success. And last but not least, we have Marianne Rodriguez, who is a certified life coach with over 20 years experience supporting C-suite executives in the financial sector. Her expertise lies with helping professionals overcome obstacles, build confidence, and unlock their potential through effective time management and productivity strategies. With a unique blend of corporate experience and coaching insight, Marianne is dedicated to empowering individuals to achieve their goals without sacrificing well-being. So thank you all so much for being here. I am thrilled to get started. So let's just go ahead and jump in. So the first question I have for you all is, what are your go-to strategies for breaking down large, ambitious goals into smaller, actionable steps?
I'll go first. I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed, right? We live in a world that offers endless opportunities. Do you want to get promoted, or do you want to start a business? For me, I have to remind myself to define the end goal. And that involves just sitting down with myself, often with a pen and paper, just writing it all out. What am I trying to achieve and why it matters? Do these align with my values? Once I get that clarity, the next step for me or my clients is to actually visualize that success. So imagine what that goal will look like. How will you feel when you're promoted or you have that new business? And then anchor that into your motivation. It's easy to get sidetracked with things, go for that shiny opportunity that everyone's telling you to take. But by keeping your end goal in mind, it's going to help you stay focused on that ambitious goal.
I agree. Beginning with the end in mind is absolutely critical. And I want to add one thing when it comes to creating the plan. Um, the plan that you end up with to get to where you want to go to is often, at the end of the day, linear: step one, step two, step three. But building the plan, it's a creative exercise, which is not linear. A creative, when you're in creativity mode, you're in the space of ideas, and that's not necessarily linear. So don't worry about planning it. Step one, step two, three. You're going to get there with a linear plan. If you know step three and you have the best vision for that, start there, write it down, type it up, capture it, and then everything will start falling into place.
I'm going to add to what Marian and Keith said so beautifully. And I will say that I like to start with the why, because the why builds momentum. It's kind of like when you have a vacation coming up and you want to look good in your swimsuit, right? The reason you're waking up at 5:30 in the morning to go to the gym is because you want to look good in a swimsuit. I can remember when my sister, who did like weightlifting competitions, we had a cruise coming up. I got up to the gym every day because I wanted to look good next to my sister. Similar to you, you have a why in mind. There's a reason why you want that position to move to that destination. So let's get really clear about that, because that brings up emotions, and that how it helps you build momentum. Because I don't care what you write on paper, if you don't have momentum, when things get tough, you will stop. So once we get the why and the emotions attached to it, let's define what success looks like each step of the way. So that might be a certain weight by this date. When we get there, we check it off, we feel good, it builds confidence. That continues to build momentum. So you're tracking your success along the way, so you know when you reached your destination. So understanding the why, getting your emotions behind it, making it tangible and real so you know when you're making progress. And when you get to your destination, you can look back and say, wow, I did it. And so that's how I like to get it from the big vision to the tangible goal in the end.
I absolutely love it. And thank you all for sharing that, because Wendy, what you said resonated with me so well that I've walked into gyms before with friends, you know, at the beginning of January, that it's, why are you here? And it's, I want to look good by this summer. And it absolutely, it resonates. So thank you. So as we're thinking about goals, that I would love if y'all could share some examples of how you've helped a client turn a daunting goal into something manageable and achievable.
Yeah, I had a client who had to pass a certification for his role. His company was paying for the certification, and in order for him to maintain employment, he had to pass the certification. He had already failed it before. So he hired me as his coach to help him create a plan and execute the plan. And the plan was a very holistic plan. It included studying and how often he should study and when he should study, et cetera. What he also realized was the connection for him to being successful, to him bringing the best version of himself on the day of his certification and when he's studying, was to exercise. I don't know if he had a photo of him in a swimsuit when he was exercising or not, but I do know that that was really important for him, and also a great stress relief as well. That was the second component of the plan. The third component of the plan was how to deal with the stress and anxiety when it would come up, because he knew it would come up based on his past history and just by him knowing himself. When we got into him actually executing the plan, we'd have check-ins, and we used a marathon metaphor. Hey, how you doing? What marathon or what mile are you at right now? Well, I'm at mile 3 or 4 right now, and it's going really well. I remember mile 5 or 6 for him was really, really hard. And that setback, he got really nervous, and he learned through the process how he can show up getting nervous, and then also how to overcome it. And mile 7, 8, 9, et cetera, got a lot smoother. And he ended up getting a certification.
That's awesome. I love it. You said you don't know if he had a swimsuit or not. That was a quick but I will say that, I had a client one time that wanted to relocate and work in a specific industry and just didn't see how it would happen. It seemed big. It seemed large. What I recognize to be true for myself and everyone else is that we all have a blueprint. Mm-hmm. What works for me and how I reach my goals may not work for you. I want every client to know that there has been a time in your life where you've reached a goal and it worked for you. I always give the example of my sister who had the color-coded calendar, right? That's how she was able to manage her responsibilities. My mind is very abstract. It doesn't work for me. So with this individual client, I asked her, well, what Tell me about a time that you were successful and yet you were able to meet a goal. She talked about her time in grad school where she had to study for a big exam and how she blocked her time and got away from people and created space. I said, how did you leverage that here? And so we were able to map it out in that way. We blocked out time because that works for her to research organizations and meet contacts in that industry. We also blocked out time for her to review her resume and apply to targeted companies. We got her away from other people to give her focused time to map out her plan on how she would transition. And so it helped her get very focused and clear and connect to the right people and eventually land her goal and get to where she wanted to go. It wasn't magic or science. It was a blueprint that she leveraged from the past that works for her now. So I always say, let's not lean on what other people do to get to where they want to go. You know exactly what works for you. Let's leverage those things. We might have to pivot and refine it, but let's leverage what you already have that is great inside of you to build a plan for right now. And if it's simple actions, let's do it. If it's pictures or a vision board, let's do it. And so that's how I like to navigate these experiences. And it worked for her as well.
I love that, Wendy. There is no one blueprint for everyone. We all need to kind of dig into ourselves to figure out what's going to be the best path. For me, I was working with a client who absolutely dreaded public speaking. Maybe a few of us here have that dread. It's common, right? But his manager really wanted him to start presenting at company-wide meetings. He had some hesitancy, so he came to me for help. So to start, I really wanted to understand what was stopping him. Like, what was he afraid of? Was it fear of being judged, worrying he might forget his words, or maybe just the fear of the unknown, not feeling confident enough? Overcoming public speaking or another daunting goal is like learning to swim the deep end of the pool. You start by dipping your toes in the water. You practice in smaller team meetings, maybe with a group of new friends, or just testing the water, getting familiar with how it feels. Then you put your whole body in the water and you learn to float. You start trusting yourself more. And just like floating in the water, you realize that as long as you stay calm and balanced, you're not going to sink. So you learn techniques like breathing and preparation and how those can become your lifeline. Eventually, with time and practice, you are swimming across the end of the deep end. So delivering presentations at company-wide meetings, if that's your goal. So only after digging into these questions more did he start to feel a shift. And there was more of a focus on the connection with his audience, not perfection. And he started to normalize nervousness. I mean, even me here today with you, like I can feel my heart racing, like I'm trying to take deep breaths, talk slowly. Start small. Like he started speaking up more in his smaller team meetings, testing the waters. And with our time together, he started to acknowledge the discomfort and acknowledge the fear that he had. And most importantly, he started to just let go and trust the process. And I have to say, our last session, I was on the Zoom. He was a few minutes late. He clicks in. He's like totally out of breath. He's like, Marianne, I just want to tell you, I just delivered a company-wide presentation that I've been trying to do for like months now. That's it. You did it. With practice and with time, yeah, we can conquer a lot of things.
I love it. And one thing that, I want to reiterate that all three of you said, it's meeting the individuals where they're at, that there is not this box that fits every single individual, the scheduling, the calendar, that tailoring the questions, the action plan to each client, it's so important. And I love that every single one of you hit on that, because I think that's really nice to echo that part of coaching is coaching the person, their nuances, their individuality. So thank you all for highlighting that. Now, mindset shifts that I know this is something we kind of talk about as coaches, it's language that we use, but thinking about, goal setting, that when we're working with our clients, what mindset shifts are most critical when it comes to sustaining progress towards long-term goals? I'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
I will start by saying we have to cultivate a space of self-compassion, right? Because we can be our worst critics and we can say, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. But it's important for us to get curious. That's key when we're on this journey around sustaining our goals, because sometimes there will be failures and there will be setbacks and sometimes you won't get it right. But rather than looking at that as a missed opportunity, we can look at it as a learning opportunity. So my goal is for the clients to look at all of that, the setbacks, the things that we see as failures, as just data points, valuable information that, we that can help us adjust where we are or pivot, because that's okay. Because every human being, whether you're running a marathon, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you want to speak properly, there's a learning curve, right? And it's normal that in that learning curve, there will be discomfort, okay? In that experience of discomfort as you're learning, there's a choice that you have, and that is to really, move away from the discomfort and go back into our old patterns, or we can say, I'm going to commit to this, and through the discomfort, I'm going to keep on going. So also being aware of the cognitive distortions, the thinking patterns that typically keep us back, being able to replace that with thoughts that really do serve us. So I have a couple of tips that can help us when we're feeling discouraged or overwhelmed in our mindset. And the first thing is acknowledge that every human being has a learning curve. Discomfort does not mean that you failed. It means that you're actually learning and you're doing the right thing. Okay. So lean into that process. Also, setbacks will happen. So when you're in a setback, I want you to treat it as insight, as a data point to help you in pivoting and adjusting how you move forward. Also, lean forward. So decide to move forward toward your goals when things get hard, rather than slipping back into your old habits. And then lean into possibility, because recognize that the reason that you started this is on the other side of that discomfort. So imagine what the future could look like if you stick with it. So just some tips for when things get hard, because we can choose to slip back into our old patterns and do what we've always done, or move into possibility and discomfort and try something new.
That was so motivating. I'm getting excited. It's okay to try something new, right? Yes. So sustaining progress toward long-term goals requires mindset shifts that are, one, going to keep you motivated, adaptable, and resilient, right? So one, I like to focus on the process, not just the outcome. So shift from I'll be happy when I achieve that goal to celebrating the small wins along the way. This focus on the progress over perfection, it's going to help you stay motivated and be flexible with your plan. Shift from the I have to do it this way to it's okay to adjust my strategy as I go along. And this is going to give you adaptability and help you navigate those roadblocks without losing sight of your ultimate goal. And last, embrace growth over perfection. Shift from I have to get it right every time to every misstep is a chance to learn. And this is tough for me because I just want everything to be perfect, but you have to look at these challenges as opportunities rather than setbacks, just to keep building that resilience and keep helping you move forward.
When I was getting a coaching certification, it was hard. It was challenging. I know Wendy, Marianne, you can relate to that as well. It's challenging. It's hard. There was a mindset shift that I had, which was be where you are. Don't try to be further along than where you are. Just be where you are. Don't compare your chapter 3 or 4 to someone else's chapter 19 or 20. Just be where you are and learn the lessons that are here and keep at it, and you'll eventually get there. That was a mindset shift that helped me a lot.
I appreciate that, and sharing, your own nuanced experience in addition to some things that you've worked with your clients on. But something that I heard you all say is motivation, that it's keeping motivated. So when you're working with your clients, how do you help them stay motivated when you're not seeing the progress at the speed that you desire, or you're falling behind with those metrics that you set, or those setbacks occur? I'd love to know how you do that.
Yeah, it can be really frustrating, right? When progress is moving slowly. I want to lose 20 pounds. I've eaten healthy for 3 days. Why have I not lost a single pound? Helping my clients stay motivated during setbacks involves a combination of mindset shifts, actionable strategies, and emotional support. So I think it's important to reframe the setbacks as part of the process and help your clients see that the setbacks, not as failures, but as opportunities to learn and grow. And we say this, I feel like we've said this a few times, but it's just so important to really understand how to do that. We explore what went wrong and what lessons you can carry forward. And just to remind them that slow progress and setbacks are part of the journey, right? Every worthwhile goal comes with challenges, and that's totally normal. Reconnecting with their why, revisit the reason we set this goal in the first place, to look good for summer or to get that new job. But aligning with our core values is going to help reignite that motivation. And again, I just encourage them to picture that end goal and how are they going to feel when they're there. And last, focus on what's in their control. We look at factors outside their control and what shifts they need to take to reach those steps. And it's celebrating effort over outcomes, recognizing that consistent effort is going to build resilience, and even when results aren't immediate.
Well said, Marianne. There's this musician named Devin Townsend who has a song lyric that says, "Slow progress is still progress." I love that line. I remember I heard the song for the first time. I heard slow progress. Wow. And a light bulb kind of went off for me. Why does growth have to be so fast? It often isn't. It often is slow. Initially, we might have a nice ramp up like this. You get that hockey stick up there, but then it's going to slow down and maybe even plateau for a while. That's 100% natural. And when you have those setbacks often are a time for you to pause, reflect, re-engage, learn something, and then you might have that growth curve again. So those setbacks teach us. They're really helpful.
Thank you for that, Keith. When you said, why does change or what does growth have to be fast? It rewires my brain a little bit. So I appreciate that because we think it has to be really fast. And in that same line, I want to say it's important that we also respect the small wins along the way because they are leading us to that growth. It doesn't have to be momentous, right? So I always tell people, if you got up that morning and you went to the gym, give yourself a pat on the back. The brain is a very interesting faculty in that our beliefs are operative. So when we believe something, we act it out. So along with our small wins, I always tell people to be aware of what they're thinking because our thinking is what got us here in current state in the first place. So if we want to go there, we have to think differently. It's so easy for our brain to say, you're never going to get there. Our thoughts can create lots of stories. It's a story-making faculty. So I encourage my clients to use two different tools, reappraisal, which is reframe the way you're thinking about it. So I always say, how could you think of that differently in a way that serves you, right? Because you get to choose how you think. We don't recognize that. The other strategy is diffusion. We don't have to attach to our thoughts. So if that thought is saying you're a loser, you can look at it and say, no, thank you, and choose something else. We're in the driver's seat when it comes to what we think. What we think becomes our belief, and our belief becomes operative in our actions. And so I just encourage my clients and all of you to be aware of what you're thinking and recognize that you have the power to navigate in a way that those thoughts serve you. And so that's what I usually like to recommend.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. That I appreciate the insights that you all provided because you're absolutely right that growth doesn't have to be fast. It's focusing on the small wins that you have at that point in time. That I have kids. I have a 4 and a 6-year-old, and seeing them progress with their writing, their letters, learning to script their own name. It's focusing on those small wins, just like you said, that it's last week we couldn't do this, but this week we can. It's the same thing as adults, that progress is not always perfection, but it's progress nonetheless. So thank you for sharing that. Now, something that we haven't quite talked about yet is burnout and self-care. That when we're setting really ambitious goals, whether it's to lose that 20 pounds, like you said, Marianne, preparing for a triathlon, going for that big raise at work, that it's how can individuals drive or balance that drive to achieve these goals that they've set with you, their coach, and the need to prioritize that self-care and avoid burnout so they can keep going.
Jamie, there's this belief that many of us have that for us to go for a really big, ambitious goal, we've got to be going all out, full out, all the time. We can't do that. That's not sustainable. You can go into the red a little bit, and it's helpful to go into the red every now and then, but you can't live your life there. If you do, you end up living a life of being exhausted and a life of reactivity versus proactivity. There is this mixed martial arts trainer named Firas Zahabi. He trained George St. Pierre, a former UFC champ. And I was listening to an interview about how he trains his athletes. And he says, in terms of the degree of intensity he takes them each day, he takes them to a 6 or a 7 level of intensity each day. He will take them into the red every now and then because there's great learning there, and we all need that experience, and it is part of our lives where we have to go into the red. But he says if you stay in the red, at least in that sport, you end up getting hurt. When you're hurt, you can't train, and the folks that you're going to be competing against, they will be continuing to train and get better. So he keeps them in 6 or 7. So how you can apply this, I think, in your life, if when you're going for a big, ambitious goal, is how are you planning in your recovery? And what is, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your intensity level of how you're living your life? And is there room for you to breathe and do the things that you need to do that bring energy back? Because you can't drink from an empty cup. Someone I knew that action for them was getting her nails done. She said, Keith, you can always tell how I'm doing and how my brain is by looking at my nails. If they're well manicured, I'm all good. Like every week, that was her thing that helped her recharge and re-energize.
That's my thing too. So I'm glad someone else feels the same way. And I like that. I like that quote that you said, you can't pour from an empty cup, because I always share it with my clients as well, because when we're committed to something, a part of the goal is also scheduling downtime and mental breaks so we can get there. It's kind of like what they say on the airplane. If you are a caregiver of a child, please put the oxygen mask on yourself for other people, because you can't serve anyone else unless you've served yourself. I heard you say, Jamie, that you're a mom. I am too. Any caregivers in the webinar space, right? If we're constantly giving and we're not taking a break, what tends to happen? We pour from a place of resentment, bitterness, anger. That's not serving anyone or anything in a fulfilling way. Even think about your workspace. When you're working 24 hours a day, you work on the weekends, you come into work not very nice. You can't focus, you have mental fog. So even your outcomes are not effective. When we create moments of space and downtime, when we are fully plugged into the work we are tasked to do, we are focused, we're energized, we're motivated. It is an essential ingredient in getting outcomes. We want results in our life. The best way to get there is to create space to breathe, take a moment, rejuvenate ourselves, and then get back on the horse so that we can be super effective. So it's always essential to create even a morning practice, an evening practice. I know some parents that I coach, they sit in the garage for 10 minutes before they go in, whatever it is, so that you can serve in a way that you're proud of.
I thought I was the only one who sits in the car for a few minutes before going into the house. Oh, God.
I did it before this webinar.
Okay, the question was, balancing the drive to achieve big goals with prioritizing self-care. I think it requires intentionality. We want to redefine success. So recognize that success includes health, happiness, and sustainability, not just achieving that goal. And set boundaries around work to create that space for rest and recovery. Be okay with saying no when creating this. And practicing energy management. I'm really a big proponent of this. So focusing on managing your energy, not just your time. Work on those high priority tasks when your energy is at its peak. Like for me, it's like morning time, 8 to 12, 7 a.m. even. I am like, go, go, go. But then take breaks, right? To avoid that overexertion, to maintain that focus. I work with a personal trainer, and sometimes I just want to get through the workouts. It's so hard. And she's like, no, stop. Like, give it a second, like, take a few breaths. I'm like, I just want to keep going. And sure enough, I take that minute, like, break, I breathe, I get back up, and I'm like at it again. And then last, I would just say, build that support system. Share your goals or your struggles with a friend or coach, someone who can provide that perspective and encouragement. Like, lean on your support network when you can.
Absolutely. And it's something you said, Marianne, that I want to point out because it was a nice reminder for myself, is that ability to say no. That we had a goal setting webinar earlier this week with our internal coach community here at Boone. And we talked about values and the ability to say no. And I think that's so important when we're taking self-care and avoiding burnout into consideration, that it's, how does this thing align with where I am at this point in time? Is it something I can take on that's going to benefit me, or is it going to hurt me in some way, shape, or form? And really just looking at my overall goals, my overall values. So I thank you for saying that, because it was a beautiful reminder for myself and almost giving myself permission to say no and hold those boundaries. So from me to you, thank you. Now, the next question I have for you all is talking about red flags that somebody may be pushing themselves too hard, and how do you recommend recalibrating?
I love this one because I know I was guilty of this prior to coaching. And sometimes even now I have to remember that if I am feeling exhausted, if I'm irritable and snapping at people, if I'm not able to focus, those are red flags. Okay. So it's important that when I'm feeling those triggers, those reminders that I'm depleted, I need to pause and then truly take stock of what's important right now and what needs to be deferred or delegated. There's a matrix that's been around forever called the Eisenhower matrix. And I always invite my clients to engage in that activity when they feel overwhelmed. Okay. And it has 4 buckets. Do it right now. These are for very urgent things that have to get done, like maybe, paying a bill or taking your child to school. There might be things that you can schedule later, right? That don't have to be done in this moment, that can be done another time. There are also things that can be delegated to other people. We as leaders, human beings, don't have to do every single thing. And then also, there are certain things that are depleting us that we shouldn't be doing at all. And so because we're an autopilot and we don't take time to pause and reset, we don't recognize what's happening in our ecosystem. But when we can map out what's happening in our world, then we can move from a place of clarity and make intentional, compassionate decisions about how we'll move forward. So when you're feeling those flags, it's an indication to reset, get clarity, and make compassionate decisions about how you'll move forward based on what you see in that matrix.
I think some red flags that I see is when nothing brings them joy, and there's a neglect in their self-care. And when this happens, I encourage my clients to just pause and reflect, like take a step back and assess how you're feeling physically, emotionally, and mentally. Journal or talk to your coach to help gain this clarity. And then prioritize rest and recovery. Schedule that downtime, whether it's a day off or favorite hobby or getting extra sleep or getting your nails done. Like this is like gender neutral thing to do, like get your nails done. Practice some kind of self-care for yourself and just like practice that mindfulness and relaxation techniques like deep breathing. I think will really help recalibrate yourself and avoid those red flags when you get them.
Marianne, that really landed when you're talking about joy. If there's no joy there, then that's something to look for. And I agree, Wendy, as well. It's listen to your body. Your body will tell you. Someone once told me that we spend all our time up here and we don't pay attention to what's going on the rest of our body, but our body gives us so much information and so much data that we often just discount that feeling in our stomach, the tightness in our shoulders. Well, if you have that feeling in that stomach and that tightness in your shoulders all the time, your body's telling you something.
Absolutely. That I have always been told and believe that your body will communicate with you in ways if you're not listening to it. So if you haven't eaten, you may get a headache, that you may get a stomach ache if something's not aligning with who you are, your values, if there's that red flag coming up. So I love what you said there. Listen to your body, because some of these tools for avoiding burnout, they're built in. They're within the amazing capabilities that we have within our own bodies. Now, the next thing I want to talk about with you all are tools. So that this is a question that I get time and time as a coach, that it's, how am I going to track my progress? How am I going to maintain focus? So I would love to know what practical tools or techniques you recommend for tracking progress and maintaining focus on goals.
Jamie, this question excites me. Like, this is my wheelhouse. This is what I do, like drive efficiency. And I'm really big on tracking progress, both personally and professionally. I truly believe what gets measured gets done. Every quarter, personally, I spend time on goal setting. I write it down, what I want to accomplish, and I actually paste it to my wall here. It's essentially my vision board. It's just Post-its, but it works for me. What am I aiming for? What do I want to achieve? What do I maybe want to do differently? But writing it out reminds me each day that this is what I set out to do. And then I have to check in with myself each month. And I also have a coach we work with together on this. How close am I achieving to this goal? But in order to do this, I need a lot of focus time. So one method that I love to use is the time blocking method. I added to my calendar 1 hour for this, 1 hour for that. And it reminds me or blocks out other tasks from happening in that hour. But then it also reminds me I need to get XYZ done today. So that's something that works really well for me.
I find what works well for me, and this technique has been used others as well, is getting an accountability partner. That friend that you need, not just the person who'll tell you what you want to hear, but the friend you need that'll help you along your way, that you're reporting into. Hey, here's how I'm doing. And when you didn't do what you said you were going to do, they're checking in. Not like kind of with that school marm energy. How come you didn't do what you did? Not that, but more of a, hey, what got in the way? What's going on? And that accountability partner can help me a lot.
What works for me is I work really well in community. So I tried everything. I tried time blocking. I tried the color coded calendar. I tried the spreadsheet. And because of my abstract thinking, that doesn't work for me. So I have 2 other women who are in similar work. We meet every month. We map out our goals. We hold each other accountable. And that's my blueprint. For other people in my life, they have a spreadsheet that they keep really close and they document their time. Other people are visual. They have pictures that they check off. So my encouragement is always what works for you, because what works for you, and that's your blueprint. So let's build on that. So I've always been, got my weight loss goals, my nutrition goals, because people were like, Wendy, did you eat that today? Did you go to the gym today? That is the only thing that pushes me towards my goals. That's Wendy. But for other clients, they like to look at things and check things off and get things done. So if that's your jam, let's build that. Other people like pictures. I have a client that loves audio. She likes to listen. So she listens to a recording of herself every night, repeating her goals. Nothing is off the table. Tap into what has worked for you before or what lights you up, and we can build a system around that. And so that's how I like to approach goal setting.
I love the creativity. Find what works for you and nothing's off the table. I don't think we say that enough. So, thank you for saying that out loud for our audience today. Now, when you're guiding clients in setting priorities, how do you help them navigate when they feel overwhelmed by competing demands? That it may be nutrition, but spending time with family around the holidays with certain types of food. That I imagine we see this a lot with the competing demands and setting goals and priorities.
Well, I failed at the holiday one with the food, so I don't know if I can address that, but I can address kind of that's a big goal too, but let's just move that one to the side if we could. Realizing that we have the gift of choice, clients and us as human beings, we want to be all things to everyone, but we don't have infinite time, energy, patience, money. And so we need to prioritize what's important, and it's okay to say yes. It's important to say yes to what really matters to you, and not right now, or no to the things that aren't as important. And it can be cloudy at times when you say, well, I want to do this and this and this. And this is where coaches can really help identify what is most important for you. And sometimes it comes to you like flipping on a light switch. And other times it takes some really deep thinking and work to identify, where are my priorities? Where do I want to focus my time? You can't do it all. What do you really want to do? Start there.
I like that you can't do everything. I remember a colleague of mine used to say, Wendy, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. Oh, okay. I like to ask one simple question, because you're right, Keith. Individuals come to the table. I don't know what I want to start with. And sometimes our clients look to us to tell them where to start. And I say, no. You are the master of your life. You know what works for you. I just met you 2 months ago, right? So you've been with yourself forever. I trust, and I know that you know this. Ask one simple question. I say, imagine I gave you a magic wand, and I see these 3 goals here. If we were to tackle one of these first, which one would absolutely transform the rest of your life by working on this one? They go, and they gave me the answer. Because sometimes you just need awareness. There is a one thing that if you worked on that first, everything else would clear up nicely. Because a lot of these goals create a story. Whenever I see a client's goals, they're typically a story about one thing, right? There's a trending in communication or relationship that I'm seeing here. And if we start here, all this other stuff will level off. So that magic wand question is what I offer to all of you when you're thinking, I have all of these goals. but if I gave you this magic wand and you cleared up one of these goals first, which one would it be? Here's your answer.
Yeah, so guiding clients to set priorities when they're feeling overwhelmed, I think involves kind of touching on this again, clarifying your values and focusing on what's most important. And from there, creating that clear plan, understanding the big picture and what is that long-term goal. And I love to categorize and clarify things. So I use a 4D method. It's do, defer, delegate, or delete. So this approach is going to help us decide, like, what do we want to tackle? What are we going to delay and defer, pass on, delegate, or just eliminate entirely? And also creating some boundaries, help them identify commitments that can be delegated or delayed or declined to free up that space so they can focus on what they need to focus on.
Absolutely. I love it. Now, we're January 16th? We're about mid-January. So I'm not sure how many goals, your clients have, you have individually, but usually there's like this laundry list of things that I want to accomplish in the next couple months, the next year. So what advice do you have for individuals who may feel paralyzed by the sheer number of goals or tasks that they want to accomplish, either in the short or the long term?
I want to first say I feel you, because even as a coach, I'm also a dreamer. That's my superpower. So I always have 20 things that I want to do, right? But I recognize I can do anything, but not everything at once. I'm one individual, but I'm going to build on what I just said. First, I want you to brain dump everything, because the thing is, it circles in our head and we get so frustrated and overwhelmed with all of it. Let's write all of it. I don't care how many it is. And then I'm going to ask you the magic wand question, because that always simplifies it. What's the one thing, right? That will clear up a lot of other things. Let's then highlight that goal and start building off of that. Because I will tell you, when we build on that super juicy goal that will help to kind of level out everything else, the confidence and the momentum that is built on that is a domino effect. And then we can then build on other things. So getting clear on that one magic wand goal gives us clarity and confidence. When we accomplish that, it also navigates where we start next. So that's what I would offer you.
Yeah, I would follow on that as well, Wendy, what you had said about brain dumping everything. This is when a coach comes in handy. And I actually had a client come to a session, she's completely overwhelmed with life. And I asked her, well, what would you like to work on? And there's just no clear response, right? There's just a lot going on for her. We've all been there. So we had a brain dumping session, and I just said, just list off everything that's going on. And I was like typing it all up. When we do this, it gets out of our head, right? And reduces that mental clutter. This is why journaling is recommended so often, right? Just get it out of our head. So then we started grouping things together. Is it personal, work, short-term, long-term? And this really helped her kind of unparalyze her thoughts to help her feel that release and gain clarity. To her at the end, it was like, oh, well, why was I stressing about this? Like, that's not due for a while. Like, let me start to tackle these today, and so forth. So I think the brain dumping is really helpful.
I agree with that. And just beginning somewhere. James Clear wrote this great book titled Atomic Habits, or the mantra of the book is, one of them is 1% better every day. Also know, if you begin somewhere, it doesn't have to be 24 hours a day. Just do something, move forward, and be consistent with it. And that'll help you get out of the paralysis and get the movement forward.
I love that theme of a small step, just one little thing, 1%, that it doesn't have to be, eating the elephant whole or taking off this big chunk, that it's just little bite-sized wins one day at a time. So the last question I have for you, because I know we have some individuals who may have to hop to that next meeting, be somewhere at the top of the hour. But before we leave today, I want to know how you help clients discern which goals are truly meaningful versus what they feel pressured to pursue.
Yeah. So helping them discern between meaningful goals and those that are driven by external pressures, I think involves guiding them through a self-reflection and clarifying the values. So I always start with the values exercise to really identify those core values. I ask my clients to reflect on what really matters to them. Is it family? Is it health? Is it creativity, for example? And do these align with your values? And how will achieving it impact your life positively? So from there, I think this is going to help them distinguish between things that are driven by their motivation versus the external expectations.
All said, agreed. I think listening to the body can help here for a client. And what are the goals that give you that beautiful blend of excitement and nervousness? I call it goosebumps and butterflies, right? The butterflies from the nervousness and the goosebumps from the excitement. That's the goal to go for. Go for it, man.
I agree with Keith and Marianne to say, Keith, I agree with you that there is a physical resonance to what aligns with us, and we're only able to identify what that is in words through values, to Marianne's point. So I like to start off with, similarly in values assessment, I have a whole inventory around what values are and what they mean, because we walk around in this world and we don't even recognize what our core values are. And core values are the anchor that allow us to identify what is for us and what is not for us in every area of our lives, relationships, jobs, all the things. Also goals, right? I didn't recognize that my number one goal was freedom for many years, and didn't realize why I was unhappy in every single, a lot of corporate jobs that I had, because I wanted to be free. And so when we recognize what's truly important to us, it will help us to clarify and identify the goals that we definitely want to target. So understanding who I am anchors me and allows me to make clear decisions. So values first, understanding that when we feel disconnected in our body, that means that we're not aligned with our values. And then moving towards what does serve us in alignment with what feels right and what our values say.
Absolutely. So well put, all of you. I absolutely love it. So as we're beginning to wrap up today's session, our webinar, if you have any questions, anything you want to put in the chat, you can also, put it in the Q&A section. If you want to remain anonymous, you can click on the 3 little dots and rename yourself. So that way, not everyone necessarily sees your question. But I want to thank our panelists today, Keith, Wendy, Marianne. Thank you so much for your participation, your insights, your guidance to everyone on the call, myself included, that it's been a true joy spending the last 50 minutes with y'all. Now, is there anything that in closing you wish to leave our attendees with?
I'd like to just say, I feel like we've been giving a lot of advice, right? And that's not generally what coaching is, right? We help you find your own path. But the point I wanted to make is that we walk the talk. I also have a coach. I also journal regularly, and I have to remind myself, and sometimes it's my coach reminding me to step back, reassess. Are we aligned with those values? So that's just something I wanted to end with on my part.
Failure is your friend. It will teach you and help you get better. And without the failure, you won't probably get there. With the failure, you'll learn from it, get better, and you're going to achieve what you want to achieve.
And I will end up with saying, trust yourself. You know exactly what works and resonates with you. But in order to hear yourself speak to yourself, you got to create time and space to do that. You are your biggest. We are your coaches and we support you, but I'm telling you, you run the entire process. So trust yourself that you know exactly what you need to do and how to get there. And having a coach support you in unpacking that is absolutely a smart choice as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We do have some questions that came through. That one of them was the 4D model, Marianne, that you mentioned. Was this David Cooper-Ryder's work, or is there something else that you referenced?
I don't know who coined it, but I'll just type it out in the chat again. Yeah, 4D method.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And another question that we have for any recommendations for listeners who are neurodivergent thinkers, such as ADHD, and goal setting or thinking about how to achieve their goals or values.
I will say that there is a system. If there may be a system in a way that typically serves you best, and you know what that is. A lot of times we look towards other people for what works and what is appropriate. But I want you to also recognize there is a power in your uniqueness, and there may be things that you're recognizing that really help to align you and motivate you. Trust that, and then use that as your compass to be able to map out what allows you to unpack things in a successful way. The fact that you're alive and human and still breathing lets me know that you know how to navigate being alive, right? So just pinpoint the things that you've worked on really well in the past. I don't care how different it is in anyone else's path, and leverage that, right? I have a neurodiverse client that likes to create lots of lists because she likes to look at it and allows her to remind herself of what she needs to get done. And it worked for her back in school. So you might have something that you remember that worked for you really well, and it may be different than everyone else, and it's fine. That is a blueprint for what may work for you in the future.
I have a family member who has ADHD, who he's very goal focused, and he gets after it, man. He does. There's 2 folks in my neighborhood with ADHD as well. And one of them, one of the benefits of ADHD is the ability to focus, like hyper focus. This person has 2 businesses which he runs because of that ability, of his ability, tapping into that ability. So run with what you got, man, and go after and get it.
And I see that we have a question. This isn't the first one I've received about watching later. This is being recorded and it will be shared. I am not sure of the exact sharing medium off the top of my head, but I have let our marketing team know that we do have attendees who want to see the recording and are requesting access. So thank you for your interest and your willingness to share this with your colleagues or anybody who couldn't be here today.